first of all, we recognise now that we have an epidemic. So what we need to do is all decide to start doing something about it. And this is where, over recent years, a groundswell of support for practitioners. We've got to give the practitioners on the street the confidence to practice myopia control. We've had an explosion of science, so what we need to do is now bring that science back to make it easy to use for the man in the street. And I think that's the prime thing. We have to decide to start and then start. Well, they've already predicted that half the population of the world will be short-sighted by 2050, I think. And there's no reason to suggest that's not going to keep happening. So, but I think if we don't do something, I don't know, we're going to have this explosion of retinopathy in 20 or 30 years' time when all these stretched eyes, start to age, and they start to fall apart. So, we're all living longer, so if my eye starts to fall apart when I'm 70 years of age and I'm going to live to 100, it's going to be a massive burden to look after these people for that last 20 or 30 years of their life. So it's an economic/health catastrophe that's coming. Education, and that's the thing, is making education accessible for all. It's niche, but it's certainly something that has to become mainstream. And I think in recent times that's what's happening. People's attitudes and optometrists' attitude. Myopia control wasn't actually considered to be valid for a long time. And so one by one, optometrists need to change their attitude to embrace it. You then need to explain that to parents. When you have a short-sighted parent, they believe their problem is it's blurry, I put my glasses on it and it's clear. Many don't even give any thought to actually why it happened. And you ask the question, well, when did you become short-sighted? They go, well, when I was at university, I couldn't see the lecture boards. When really we consider it wasn't the lecture boards that were the problem, it was all the study. Humans won't change their behaviour unless they understand why. Awareness campaigns, I think, would be the first thing that they can do, is that people speaking publicly and broadly through the media that this is something that needs to be addressed. Then supporting practitioner education, making practitioner education available to all. We need to then get the universities on board in terms of, again, trying to make the programs of those educations easy and accessible to the practitioners, so that then what we now is we have that trickle down of knowledge. So the parents already know about the problem. They know that we don't have foolproof treatments, but we have some treatments. They know that it's an evolving science, so then they can have confidence when they walk into their optometrist to have that conversation. Or perhaps they can say to the optometrist, what about control? They can take control. So I think public awareness campaigns are the prime thing that governments could do. Look, I think we have to recognise that we are in an area of emerging science, and we have to use the science that we've got now. We don't have the science that's going to be here in 2 years' time yet. We know there's going to be more science in 2 years' time there. So the barriers, I think, primarily are there's a lot of work that needs to be done to break this problem apart. So from that point of view, that's the biggest barrier, is getting that sort of work done, because we need to work out what we have to do things with these patients to be most effective. There's certainly more patients coming in, and a lot of the research is all done on early onset young kids, but we have plenty of people in their teens and 20s, the late onset ones, and I believe we have more of those ones, particularly the myopic ones in the presbyopic years. In terms of patients' awareness, okay, I think people are becoming more accepting of the idea, and it's not as foreign as it was. But we've still got a long way to go, because lots and lots of people don't know about myopia control. We start with the conversation, and it requires, in the middle of a busy day, it requires you to stop, and if you've got a myopic parent, to stop and say, okay, and let's talk about your myopia, and then let's talk about stopping it. And I like to say, in Australia, we're heading towards 40% of kids being short-sighted by the time they're 18. So each of your children, have got a 4 out of 10 chance of going that way. Now, if we had a crystal ball and we can work out who it was, well, we'd do everything we could to try and stop it. And what I'm trying to do there is to change their mindset a little bit, and saying, well, I don't just have this fear that my child will become myopic. Yes, I have that fear, but I actually now realise that there's steps that we need to take to try and prevent it. And that's when you move on to conversation about lifestyle. I was fortunate. My sister, when I was at university, became myopic in about 1986, and I know I don't look that old, but she was put into an executive bifocal at school, and she didn't get worse during high school. When I was testing her eyes at university, and I didn't really understand why the bifocal was in there, and I said to the supervisor, "Oh, we should take that out." And the supervisor said, "Who put it in?" And I told him the name of our local optometrist, and she said, "Leave it in." And I went, "Oh, okay." Still didn't understand why. But then once I graduated, my first boss, who I was fortunate, I got a second education after I left university. I went to work for an old guy who did teach me a lot. And he said to me, I asked about the bifocals and myopia control. He said, it doesn't work for everybody, but it's worth doing, because otherwise they just get worse. So he encouraged me early on, and so I had a sort of open mind to that from a start. It goes around, there's lenses and lenses, and in terms of if you take a bifocal for myopia treatment, there's two parts of it. You've got two pairs of glasses there. You've got a top part of a lens which makes things clearer, and we don't necessarily want to encourage too much use of that, but we have the bottom part of the lens which is actually doing a treatment. And so getting parents to understand the strategies, the two strategies. One is trying to stop it in different techniques, and we then go, oh, if you're going to be helping my kid, aren't you going to make them weak? And I'm going to go, no, myopia is a condition of overdoing it. What we're trying to do is reduce the load on the eyes. That's our initial first strategy. So it's not that I want to make you weak, I'm protecting you from the strain that you're putting yourself under with all your study or your computer usage.